Hello again, everyone. Edwin Learnard back once again in this YouTube astrological segment. I'm going to be talking about transit Pluto, square opposition, or inconjunct one's natal north node. Now, when we're talking about transits that involve Pluto, they can be about power, control, transformation, crisis, desire, obsession, and fixation. Now, when transit Pluto is basically making an adverse aspect to one's natal north node. Well, I'm going to elaborate on that. When I say basically adverse aspect, squares and oppositions, of course, those aspects are adverse and negative. Now, the inconjunct aspect is neutral, but neutral aspects can have good and bad qualities in them. And an inconjunct can also require an adjustment or transition. And those things, of course, can cause some exasperation and tension. So collectively, basically, I do see it as an adverse transit. Now, the thing about this is when transit Pluto is basically making an adverse aspect to one's natal north node, well, it may manifest in power, control, transformation, crisis, desire, obsession, and fixation. These things may conflict with one's future, or you might be overly obsessed or fixated on pursuing your future. It could be a time when you have this transit. If you're going through crisis, adversity, or some major change or transformation, this might actually conflict with what you're trying to pursue, where you feel you're directed toward at this time. And it can be, if the natal north node is in Pisces, it could be something, with poetry or dancing or self-sacrificing, altruism. It could be something with the metaphysical, which includes astrology. Now, the north node is also, it's connected with the destiny. And it could be what's preordained. This is something, again, going back to the fact that you could be dealing with a crisis. It could be a power struggle you're dealing with. You might not even feel that you have much power control over your future at the time. It doesn't mean you don't, but it may be harder. You might feel that it's harder right now to actually be more in control of your future and destiny at the time of this transit. Now, and it can be too. The North Node is associated with mission, or the mission too, and purpose. And the thing about this is, you might be going through some issues with insurance or taxes or a will. It might be some shared resources situation. Might be challenging. In what you're trying to do as far as fulfilling what you feel that your mission, your purpose is. The North Node, natal North Node, is energy we're supposed to emphasize more in the second part of life. Let's say like 35, age 35 and later. So if you're in that, that age period especially, this is a time where it could be a little bit frustrating because you feel it might be a situation where you don't feel like you have as much control over fulfilling that at this time. There may be upheavals in your life. If transit Pluto is in the fourth house, say, there may be upheavals in your home and family life. Maybe you're dealing or experienced a death that is really factoring in negatively in terms of trying to fulfill your mission, where you feel your mission is right now, where your purpose may lie. And the North Node is also really about the development of the positive attributes that are associated with the placement. Now, when this transit occurs, you might not have that desire to fulfill those, to really develop, the positive, attributes that are connected with the placement. And the thing about, this is, if it's something where, for example, if the North Node is in Capricorn, it could be developing structure, discipline, consistency, business acumen as some examples, or Sagittarius. It could be connected with philosophy or religion, being exuberant, maybe some ability in sports, or being able, to really, maybe be like more motivational, be able to encourage others through expansive optimism, as some examples. Now, another thing is that this, the North Node is also connected with what we're learning and aspiring to be. The thing about this transit is that, again, going back to crisis and upheaval, if you're dealing with any upheavals or crisis in your life, it might be more difficult to learn and aspire to be what is associated with the North Node placement. You might not have that desire, that passion at this time, that emotional intensity to go after those things, to want to actually learn and aspire to be what is associated with the North Node placement. Now, the North Node is also connected with what you're moving toward, what you're directed toward, because the South Node, of course, is reflective of what you're going away from. So, and the North Node is just the opposite. Now, it can be, you might feel at this time you don't have the control to go after what you actually feel you're moving toward at this time. You might feel that you don't have the desire or passion to do so during this transit. A crisis may be impeding this at this time. You might be dealing with a death that is making that more difficult at the time of this transit. And also if you're dealing, Pluto is also connected with crime and corruption. So it can be a time where if you're dealing with that, if you're in a high crime neighborhood, those things that could be causing a distraction to actually go where you feel you're directed toward at this time. It can be situation too. I mean, when you have this transit, the North Node, keep in mind, it's about issues that you can be about issues you have to address and confront. And the thing about it is, if there's a death that you've been trying to contend and deal with, if there's a figurative ending, an obliteration of something, those things might be harder to address and confront, whether it's just too overwhelming for you, whether you don't want to say courage, but you don't have it really in you, that drive to really look at these things at this point in time. It might be things you're avoiding, but in trying to address it might be more difficult than usual. And going back to the North Node being connected with what could be destined, what could be preordained, it might be a situation where you can be really you might where you feel what's preordained, what's destined. Again, you may not have, well, you want to say desire or passion to really to go after that. Or you could be dealing with a crisis again, or a death, as far as a distraction. And anyway, another thing too is that another way this transit may manifest, it could be where you may be overly obsessed or fixated with what you are trying to learn and aspire to be. Let's say, for example, if the natal North Node is in Aquarius in the 11th house. It could be being an unobtrusive, which is Aquarius, friend, and of course 11th house is connected with friendships. It can be a time too where a crisis may challenge your future at this time. Let's say if the natal North Node is in Virgo, in the 8th house as an example. The future may be connected with some kind of analytical and very detail-oriented, and that's Virgo. It could be astrology or psychology, that which is associated with the 8th house. And also, too, another way this transit may be expressed, you could be trying to contend, it could be with power struggles that may challenge issues that may have to be addressed and confronted at this time. Now, let's say, for example, if you have the natal North Node in Taurus in the 6th house, well, that may manifest. It could be health-related issues that are connected with the throat, the neck, the esophagus, the thyroid, as some examples. Hold on a moment, people. Sorry about that, I'm back, but anyway. Now the thing is, you could also be dealing with Pluto-related issues that may conflict with the qualities you have to develop in Pluto-related issues. I mean, that could cover a wide divergence of things. It could be something with taxes or insurance or a will. It could be a death. It could be surgery, in some cases, or some trauma you may actually be dealing with. Um, and let's say, for example, if the natal north node is in Gemini, um, it could be, those qualities that you're trying to develop might be something, just being more versatile, eloquent, communicative, dexterous, such as being able to do things that require manual dexterity, such as auto or refrigeration mechanics, or just general dexterity. I would say like juggling could be another example. Also, too, in some instances, especially if you've had these problems already prior to the transit, there may be if you have any issues with the colon, the prostate, the bladder. Those issues may challenge at this time. It could be where your future lies and the ability to develop the qualities, the attributes that are connected with the placement and what you may be learning and aspiring to be. And those issues that I described that are anatomically connected with Pluto, they also may be issues you have a hard time addressing and confronting at the time of this transit. Anyway, people, that'll conclude this YouTube astrological segment. Until next time, people, Edwin Learnard saying stay well.